Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Thought Leadership Service, the conversations that we have at ACES Innovations. We are all excited today to have Nirmala with us, and Nirmala is someone which is so well known in the KM community. Now, Nirmala has about 20 over years, I think it's 21 years of KM experience with us, and today she is actually the Vice President of KM Services at Genpact. And it's exciting to have you here, Nirmala. I want to wish you a good afternoon. I know it's afternoon for you. It's almost evening for me. And we're all excited to hear about you and what you have to say about the trends in KM, especially now as we're going on to an endemic, the post-COVID era, as well as touching on, the manufacturing sector and how things have moved in terms of KM, right? So without much ado, Nirmala, I'm going to give it over to you to do a short introduction about yourself. I know you have extensive work in KM. You've done so many talks, as well as written so many articles, and I really like your articles on leadership, on senior management workshops that you've done, as well as culture. So over to you, Nirmala.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. It's great to be here, and I'm really excited, equally excited to share this session with you. And I hope we'll be able to cover some important topics for people who are interested in knowledge management. So, to introduce myself, like you pointed out, I have been in this domain for about 21, 22 years, and I have worked with large IT organizations, one manufacturing organization, and yes, I love writing about knowledge management, about leadership, about culture, and I've been doing this for several years now, and I've also participated in several conferences across the globe, and I've made presentations on, either knowledge management projects or knowledge management concepts and ideas. So, yeah, very excited to be here and looking forward to the questions.
Thanks, Nirmala, and we are equally excited as well. We had a conversation some time back as well. I think we first met up about a year and a half ago. And since then, so many things have changed for you in India, for me in Singapore, right? And we see that emphasis on KM coming back. Now, maybe looking back a couple of years, and especially during that COVID era, and now that we are at this endemic stage, right? What do you think are the trends in KM that we have seen from pandemic to right now, post-COVID?
Right. I have definitely thought about this in the past as well. I think there are 2 points that I'd like to bring out, in response to your question. Number one, I think post-pandemic, everything became virtual. In KM circles, we've been talking about water cooler for a long time. I mean, about a decade or 2 decades ago, we used to talk about how the water cooler is the place where people come to gather and share knowledge and exchange thoughts. Now there is no water cooler because we're all sitting in our own houses. There's no common water cooler. So I believe that now, it's all virtual. The water cooler is everywhere and anywhere. So anytime I want, I can, just set up a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call or any other call, and, I can exchange thoughts and ideas with colleagues, with people inside my organization, outside my organization. So I think definitely there has been an acceleration of the adoption of, technologies for virtual knowledge sharing. All of us have, whether we like it or not, I think we've begun to get used to this whole, having Zoom meetings and having Microsoft Teams meetings. And however tough or complicated the task is, we have to get it done through virtual, tools and platforms. So I think that's number one. And as the joke goes, despite all the efforts that knowledge managers have made in the last 2-3 decades, what the pandemic could achieve in 2 years is much more than what knowledge managers achieved in 2 decades, right? So when you have no other option, I think people begin to adopt things and, slowly get used to it. And number two, I think it's 2 years, right, since the pandemic started, and we have been using Zoom continuously, and we've been talking about things like Zoom fatigue, for example, right? So, people who have been forced to get into Zoom calls continuously from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or maybe even 9 to 9. We go through Zoom fatigue. So what happens in such a scenario is we understand the importance of asynchronous collaboration. So I think in the past, many knowledge managers have struggled to get their organizations to adopt collaboration platforms, which is not something like Zoom or MS Teams. I'm talking about something which is actually MS Teams in a way, because you have discussion threads, you have people exchanging thoughts, you have files, you have wiki pages, and so on and so forth. So I think asynchronous collaboration is probably something that people are beginning to make use of in the last 1 year. After experiencing a lot of Zoom fatigue, I think people realize that it's not possible to discuss everything over a call, virtual call. So, and if organizations are not adopting asynchronous collaboration, then I believe it's really time for us to look at that, because Zoom fatigue is real.
Thank you, Nirmala. I really like this concept we've talked about asynchronous collaboration. It's actually the point that you put earlier, what KM managers were trying to do for 20 years, right? The world kind of pushed us forward, and in 2 years, we have seen so many initiatives. Now, personally, I'm someone who uses Miro, and I use Jambots, and I use it both in the academic world, in conducting classes, as well as when we do meetings or we do discussions and we do brainstorming. And it's amazing. It's amazing how the concept, we all remember, get post-it pads onto the tables, do the convergence and the divergence and the convergence exercise, get all the ideas up there. And today, we are able to do this simultaneously or asynchronously, and everybody's participating. The speed of knowledge exchange is tremendous, right? Well, Zoom fatigue is definitely there, which brings us to this concept of hybrid working, right? We've heard hybrid becoming the way to go, and while we will never see the same concept of how work used to be. I guess the future of work then says that there's going to be a bit of a mix and match, right? You may have team A at work, team B at home, or you may be working completely from home, from some of the organizations that I've heard of. Now, other than this, what do you think are probably some of the new practices that we are going to foresee in the hybrid way of working?
Right. I think definitely one of the aspects that the world is now looking into is AI. So I think AI will probably accelerate or facilitate or become a catalyst for this whole hybrid work environment. How can we make things easier for us to, let's say, find information or, connect with each other, find people that, in the past, we've said that people typically connect with those who work in the same office. So, you need to be physically co-located to be able to strike a conversation and, exchange thoughts, feel comfortable with people. But now I think, it's become very different. I mean, for example, in some of the organizations that I have worked with, we've had opportunities for serendipity, which is, you suddenly find somebody who you've not really worked with, but could add value to what you're doing, the project that you're working on, right? So the same thing, I think, can be replicated in the virtual world, where we can, just like Twitter, for example, you find random people based on your searches or based on maybe your own, smaller circle of people and who they interact with, etc. So I think serendipity is a concept that we need to keep in mind. How we leverage on AI to make life easier is another aspect that we need to keep in mind. And we still have to go back to the most fundamental aspect, which is how do we leverage better on collaboration platforms? Because I honestly believe that even today, despite having many collaboration platforms, a lot of people are not comfortable with documenting things, putting it out on a, let's say a whiteboard or a discussion forum or a wiki page, and then letting people look at it, absorb it, and respond to it. I think the tendency in many organizations is to immediately call for a meeting, talk about everything, exchange thoughts verbally, and then maybe somebody captures the minutes of meetings, and then a decision is taken. But then with a global workforce, people in different time zones, I think it's really important to go back to the fundamentals and look at collaboration platforms and how effectively we can leverage on each and every feature within them. So I think that's how we can pull all the threads together and hold everything together. Otherwise, it's going to be multiple threads in multiple places, maybe physical, maybe virtual, and then it becomes a nightmare for one person to bring everything together. So I think that's my thought process right now. Yeah.
I like how you use the concept of stitching. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, that's what knowledge managers used to do. Knowledge used to be, it's all over the place. And the knowledge manager's real job was then trying to stitch and get all of this into a repository and then putting in things like taxonomy. And it's interesting how you said AI is coming in, because today you have AI systems out there that auto do your taxonomy automatically, right? It picks up the keywords, it's doing an auto summary of the whatever document it is, right, and versions of it and such, right? Now, one thing that I really liked what you said was the concept that today we have no boundaries. We have a global workforce. We can be seated anywhere. I could be on the beach, literally, right? I could be literally on the beach with my laptop. As long as I'm connected, I'm at work, right? And how KMers today still need to stitch information, but in a different form. Yeah. One thing you added earlier was this concept of the pandemic brought us into this concept of work from home. Now, one of the challenge I experienced myself was the silo mentality coming back. Well, for many years, we were all back into a collaborative space. We had our water coolers in the office. Then suddenly, 2 years ago, everyone went back into their own little silos at home. And that's where the difficulty started, And collaboration had to start back again with the introduction of new platforms, new systems. Do you think this is something that is causing that delay in openness in collaborating on a virtual scale?
You mean the fact that we are working from home?
The fact that we are back into silos and now we have to share virtually.
I actually have a different opinion there, maybe a kind of contradictory opinion. I feel the need to connect with colleagues, at least within an organizational context, the need to connect with colleagues and the subconscious fear that you are away from the place of action, imaginary place of action, right, which is the office, is probably pushing many of us to, connect with more people. And like I said, it no longer matters to me as to whether a person is working in the same office or the same location or not. So the possibility of me connecting with somebody in some other geography, in some other business unit, probably has gone up. I don't know if people will agree with me, but my view on this is actually the opposite. I feel that it's become easier for us to now, email somebody or ping somebody on the, Yammer platform within the organization, or maybe the MS Teams platform, and get talking about things, and you typically what happens is, because you're not co-located and you're not physically located in the same place as your colleagues, I think the plan for the day is probably a little more under your control, where you can think about what are the different meetings you can have, with outside of the regular team gatherings. And that is when you can catch up with people in other business units and probably, just have a quick introduction or find out what they're doing. And that's my opinion. Yeah.
Thanks, Nirmala. I guess that touches on the point of optimizing your day. And therefore, if you are able to focus in that way, right, productivity is at the highest, right? Because everything that you do is going to be efficient and effective. So it's an awesome thought that you put in as well. I had an experience where when pandemic happened, right, we still had traditional bosses who had this mindset that if I don't see you, it means you're not working, right? So they had to physically see you in the office, and you did speak about this fear, that subconscious fear that if we are away from the office, we can't be connected, right? Yet 2 years on, connectivity is at the highest, because today I don't need you to be in the office, and I can still be connected, like you said, either with Yammer or with your MS Teams or things like that. Now, I'm going to shift this now into a leadership question, right? What fear then do the leaders have out there when talking about innovation and talking about how we can get them to be more supportive into KM efforts in this new virtual KM model?
Right. I think there are 4 points that I'd like to share in response to this question. One is, I think it's very critical for us to be able to create compelling dashboards. KM dashboards, a place that a leader can go to find out what are the most important data points, what is the impact on business, what is the progress with different projects and initiatives, and what are the areas that need attention, right? So I think creating a dashboard, a virtual dashboard that a leader can access at any point of time, any day of the week or any month of the year, I think that's critical and will make a difference. Number one. And number two, I think the conventional, habit of storytelling, the practice of storytelling, right? So picking up anecdotal evidence and presenting it in the form of a compelling story is still as important as, say, presenting a dashboard with data points. So I think it covers, both ends of the spectrum. So you're talking about visual, infographics and data, and you're also talking about stories that will capture the leader's attention and imagination, right? So that's the second point. And the third point I would say is something that I feel very few organizations have tried, and which is something I did have the opportunity to try in one of the organizations that I worked with, is conceptualizing methodologies that will help us align business objectives with KM objectives. How you conceive a methodology that will help the business leaders achieve their objectives using knowledge management and learning and collaboration elements. I think this involves a lot of work and effort, and you need to start small, experiment, work with a lot of business leaders and see if it's making sense to them and tweak it down the line. So that's my third point. And the fourth point I would say is being able to focus on critical business parameters like customer satisfaction, employee retention, and employee onboarding, for example. So if we are able to focus on such aspects and prove to the leadership that there is a positive impact that KM is bringing to the table as far as these, for example, these three parameters are concerned, I think the leadership will sit up and take notice.
Thank you, Nirmala, and I think it's awesome points from you. The entire concept of visualizing how knowledge management is supporting, right, the business strategy. So it's very important as we come up with KM strategy that we don't get off track. The KM strategy is there to support the business strategy, because the business strategy is what's going to bring us the money, right? The dollars and cents come from there. And if you can translate this into that language, then the leaders will be able to have their eyes open and their ears focused on what you're going to say, because you're going to bring in business impact, right? And that's going to bring better, better business processes. It's going to bring better productivity. It's going to bring more efficient workforce. And even today in the era of the Great Resignation, you are going to have a smarter workforce and therefore then a smarter organization, right? When you're working with. I think I heard the points that you said, the importance of storytelling, and we did cover this topic some time back. You see, today we live in a world of big data and we have so much of numbers running here and there, right? But to sense make it into a dashboard and thereafter to have that story that gives you that punchline of, hey, this is what the data is translating into. This is what it means to us. It's so important when we speak to our leaders. And I love the point that you brought up. We have to talk about the critical business factors. What is it out there that we know will make a difference for us? And that's awesome. Nirmala, you've just, you've gone into the manufacturing industry now. What are your views on KM in the manufacturing industries, and what's exciting you about what you're doing right now?
Right. So right now, I'm not in the manufacturing industry, by the way. The experience that I had was somewhere between 2015 and 2019. Approximately 5 years. So now what I've noticed in the manufacturing industry is it's a completely different kind of experience compared to what we go through in consulting or in IT. The first point that I'd like to share here is in the manufacturing industry, it makes a lot of sense for knowledge management to be aligned with business excellence. Because business excellence is something really key to most of the manufacturing organizations. They strive to be, validated by different business models, and it is a default process for manufacturing organizations to be validated by business excellence consultants, based on different models that the particular organization believes in. Right. So I think it makes a lot of sense for knowledge managers to align themselves with the business excellence model that the organization has adopted. And invariably, most of the business excellence models will delve into knowledge and collaboration and learning. So, how we align ourselves there is, I think, what will become the, pivot for knowledge management. And the second aspect that I'd like to, share with you is my understanding is a lot of knowledge management success is based on processes, right? So, how well can we work with the business unit leaders or the, top management to re-engineer processes and make them more knowledge intensive, or, be able to capture and share knowledge at the right point of time. I think that will make a huge difference. But the caveat here, I think, is unless the knowledge management team is influential enough, these kind of process enhancements and modifications are not going to happen. It's going to be very difficult. Even if the idea exists, it's not going to be possible to execute it unless there is a top-down approach here. So that is the second point. And the final point that I'd like to make is one of the things I have noticed is more than sophisticated technology-based KM initiatives, what really helps conventional manufacturing organization it's the simpler practices, simpler habits, like, let's say, a knowledge sharing session where everybody gets together on a weekly basis and somebody talks about some topic, somebody talks about a project that they've worked on, and maybe something very simple like a contest for people to create an asset. I have found that these simple habits and practices are appealing in a manufacturing organization. So it's not like everybody's tech savvy. A lot of people are just doing conventional stuff, and they enjoy these kind of practices and habits.
Thank you so much, Nirmala. I think I have such amazing takeaways from this session. I think from the start, when we talked about asynchronous collaboration, where you talked about how today we have so many collaborative platforms out there, and how the rate of sharing, right, has improved, and it's going through this tremendous accelerated pace. Right, you shared on how AI has come in, and it's nice to see AI in the KM community picking up, and how we today work in a environment with no boundaries. We are truly today global citizens in one workforce, and I like how you ended it, the need for us to actually deepen our collaboration. And the magic words for me, actually, my biggest takeaway is keep it simple, right? As leaders, it is important for us to get the leaders buy-in, right? So that we can be successful in what we plan to do. But the most important point is KM is not complicated enough. The world is complicated already. So KM is not complicated. Let's just keep it simple, drive the point and hit the home run. Yeah. So Nirmala, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. You've really given us loads of nuggets here for us to be future ready and drive into the smart organization of the world. So thank you so much for joining us and spending your afternoon with us. Thank you, Nirmala.
Thank you. I really loved this session and I enjoyed talking about these topics. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.